Going ahead, we start today with Donald Winnicott. Donald Winnicott, in the history of psychoanalysis, belongs to what is called the independent tradition. After Freud moved to England and he passed away, psychoanalysis at that point got divided into the Kleinian camp and the Anna-Freudian camp. And there were some who refused to join either. They wanted to view issues on their own merit or start a synthetic tradition of their own. And this group came to be known as the independent group. Winnicott, Bowlby, and a few others became the prime members of this independent group. So here we see Donald Winnicott, born 1896, upper middle class privileged family, well-to-do. He was youngest of 3 children and he was always surrounded by number of female caregivers. His mother, sisters, governesses, maids, and no wonder his theory is full of female nurturing, because he was surrounded in childhood by very nurturing female figures. And he could easily identify what happens when the nurturing is not adequate. At the age of 7, like everyone of his generation who belonged to upper middle and upper classes, he was sent to a boarding school, and like Bion, he also felt very painful about it. And he wrote somewhere, "I would not send a dog to a boarding school at 7. Got trained as a doctor, pediatrician, married twice, the first divorce, second continued, and he underwent his own training analysis twice. It is very strange and very unique in a way. His first analysis, and when I say he was trained as a pediatrician, slowly his interest moved from the body of the child to the brain of the child to the mind of the child and finally to psychoanalysis. And when that movement happened and he decided to pursue psychoanalysis seriously, he got himself trained, and his first analyst was James Strachey. And James Strachey, if you recollect, is one of very popular translators of Freud. And he has translated voluminous work of Freud. So his first analyst was actually a Freudian. But he would not call himself a Freudian. He would call himself more of the independent group, but his own training was that of a Freudian. And this analysis went on for 9 years. So we can see the kind of time people used to invest in psychoanalysis at that point. His second analysis was with John Reverie. And she was a confirmed Kleinian. And that went on for 5 years. So almost 14 years, he explored himself in analysis. First with somebody who was a Freudian, and second with somebody who was a Kleinian. And very interestingly, he did not go to the second analysis because the first failed. If you generally look into people who have gone in for 2 analyses, I asked one of my teachers, he had a similar training. And I asked him, why did you go for 2 analyses with 2 different people? And he said, The second analysis was to overcome the first analysis. But in Winnicott's case, nothing of that sort happened. Both of them went very well. And he voluntarily went into the second analysis because he wanted to first-hand experience the Kleinian concepts. So in the seriousness with which he took it, one can see by the investment of time and money and energy that he put into his own analysis. So first with a Freudian who called himself independent, and second with a confirmed Kleinian. If we look at Winnicott's theory, his therapy, the first thing that we observe is he is an environment-heavy theorist. Like when we look at how much emphasis a theorist gives to constitution and to environment, how important is the inside and how important is the outside, Winnicott is one of the most outside-heavy thinkers and one of the least inside-heavy thinkers. So the least importance to constitution, if you find in any psychoanalytic theorist, would be Winnicott, and heaviest in terms of his emphasis on the outside. And in the outside, he would specifically focus upon the maternal care. So between constitution and environment is heavily more important, and within the environment, it is the early maternal care. He went to such an extreme to say there is no such thing as the baby. It is the environment which sort of forges out the baby. And this is as opposite to Jung as one can be. Because Jung talks about the design in nature, about the seed becoming the tree, meaning the seed is always there by birth. And the environment is only fertilizer, water, and sunlight. It cannot change the blueprint of the seed. But here you have exactly the opposite idea, that there is no such thing as the seed. The environment creates the seed. So the movement here is from drives to relationships. Freud was concerned with drives and the frustration of drives. Yeah.
Sir, I remember reading from Leo Kanner, child psychiatry textbook. He one day declared in the class that there is no such thing as a child. And all the students who were pediatricians and psychiatrists and psychologists, they were surprised. They thought that the teacher is going bonkers.
Right.
Then he completed his sentence without the mother. There is no such thing as a child without the mother.
Correct.
The second time I'm coming across this phrase, I thought, let me interrupt you.
It's very interesting. Lacan used a similar statement. And he said, the woman does not exist.
Oh.
And obviously it cannot be literally true because we are all born from women. And if women does not exist, then we can't exist. So literally it can't be true. There has to be a metaphorical twist to it.
Yes.
And obviously the metaphorical twist that he gives is in terms of the pole of personality and the fluidity of personality. That the fluidity is so high that there is nothing distinctly stable that you can call the woman.
Fluidity is so high
that there is nothing distinctly stable that you can call a woman. There is no one thing that's stable. And then when you have to account for stability, you will have to bring in the man in the woman.
Understand.
You'll have to appeal to yin and yang. Sorry.
I see. No, I thought you were a writer in Marathi called Dilip Chitre, I suppose, Dipu Chitre. He wrote in his book Shiba Ranicha Shodhat that virginity has to be created in a woman. So perhaps to me, it sounds that they're naturally so, perhaps many of them, or most of the time, they remain reactionary or always involved in the object. that they mold themselves to how the man around shapes them. This is how I interpreted Shiba Rani Jashoda, that statement that
Correct.
virginity has to be created.
Correct. So it is like uh, when we equate the feminine with the fluid, the
Mm,
flowing river, and the
mm,
masculine with the mountain,
mm,
the stable rock,
mm,
then the stability in women has to be interpreted as the man in the woman.
mm,
So, like once you give these definitions, then from the first principles there is a logical necessity,
mm, mm,
and the second part is yes, the fluidity is naturally high, the molding oneself to the other is naturally high, being interested more in people and less in things is naturally high, which is very different in males. That most males are interested more in things and less in people, comparatively speaking. And there is a socio-cultural angle also, that because of low power and high insecurity, they have to mold themselves.
yes.
So there is a nature and there is a culture. Both are multiplying each other.
In the book called Red Thread, in the initial frontispiece, the author says, Beatrix Fleiderer, she says, a woman has to be uh, a totally self-sacrificing entity or something like that, or a perfect manipulator to
Ah,
survive.
correct.
So the men around, if they compel that kind of femininity on her, project onto her, and then she has to mold herself accordingly for survival and for thriving.
Because the more powerful in the dyad is looking for a perfect woman,
Uh,
and he is more powerful between the two. So the other has to mold to some extent
mm,
in terms of sacrifice, in some extent in manipulation. It's actually both. It's
yeah.
partial sacrifice and partial manipulation,
Mm,
because this is
yes.
like uh, if a woman wants to manage a narcissist, it's very easy,
Uh-huh.
because the narcissist will say it is very easy to manage. You only have to do three things in the world. LOP, that is the formula. Love me, obey me, and please me. But then to do it in real life, it will suck the life out of her.
Yes.
So Winnicott in that sense is very, very environment heavy. The movement from Freud to Winnicott is a movement from drives to relationships. And within relationships, Winnicott has a very specific inclination. Like Melanie Klein is also into relationships. Her whole theory is called an object relations school. So they are into relations. But Winnicott is in a very specific kind of relationship emphasis, and that is on outer relationships. Whereas Klein is more in terms of the internal relationships. So both are object relationships in some sense. But Winnicott is more focused on the relationship in the real outer world, whereas Klein is more focused on the relations in the internal world. For Winnicott, the very important element is the facilitating environment, which has very strong bearing on the physiological and psychological states which we experience in very early life. So Winnicott says that we experience very difficult psychological and physiological states, and we need a facilitating environment to make those states more comfortable and bearable. And an absence of it creates a list of problems. So we'll slowly go into what all is there in the facilitating environment, but for the moment, just a mention of it. One of the very important elements in Winnicott's life was recurrent depression of his mother. And Winnicott wrote a famous line. He said, "To keep her alive became my living." And therefore, aliveness is central to Winnicott. Aliveness not only in the sense of prevention of suicide, but aliveness in the sense of really feeling alive, not just surviving. Winnicott refused to belong to either the Kleinian group or the Freudian group, and he created his own opinions, and it came to be known as the independent school, the independent school of the British tradition. Even today, it's referred to as the independent tradition, or the independent group, or the independent school. He and Bowlby were very popular members of that independent group. Winnicott's theory is also termed as a soft object relations theory. That it is an object relations theory, but it does not go into the micro processes that Klein goes into in the intrapsychic context. He just talks of it in the outer macro context. He does not go into the intrapsychic elements as Klein goes. He goes into the effects of outer relationships in the internal world, that he goes into microscopic details, but he does not look at relationships in the mind as intrapsychic. So in Klein's view, Klein's focus, the focus is on intrapsychic object relationships and processes which happen in that intrapsychic object relationship. In Winnicott, it's very strange. The relationship in question is in the outer world, but the effects of it are studied in the inner world. Whereas in Klein, both are in the inner world. Both are intrapsychic. In Winnicott, the relationships are interpsychic, and the effect of it is analyzed intrapsychic. Major publications are many, but three I have put here. The first is Through Pediatrics to Psychoanalysis. Second, The Maturational Processes and the Facilitating Environment. And third, and very important, Playing and Reality. Because for Winnicott, play is very important. Because play means four important things actually. The first is, play is always a play between reality and fantasy. That one is healthy enough to play across reality and fantasy. There is no fear of being overwhelmed by one, or getting fixated in one, or getting addicted to one. One is healthy enough to play. Second, it's an act of creativity. Third, it is the opposite of concreteness, which is very psychotic in nature. That if you are fixated in some sort of concreteness, you cannot play. And fourth is, what is unbearable can slowly be brought into play, and it suddenly becomes bearable and analyzable. From something that is abhorred to something that one tolerates just to think about, to something that one is comfortable playing with. So it's a very important element of therapy. That what is severely repressed becomes known. What becomes known and barely tolerable slowly comes into play. And that is a very important element of movement towards health. Please.
I see the first book that is referred here. There must be many, but the first book that you are depicting here comes at the age of 62.
Yes.
Which is good actually. It should be inspiring.
Yes, like exclusive wine, some people age slowly, mature slowly. Like Immanuel Kant, he wrote his masterpiece at 52.
Oh.
Will Durant writes about it. Will Durant writes about it. He says, no philosopher matured so slowly, but then no single book startled the world so much.
Oh, I must read that, sir. I'm sorry, I'm ignorant in this condition.
So it's a like there are many people who have brought out their masterpieces much late,
Fantastic.
because you can either write in the upsurge of your enthusiasm in youth and later
Yes,
correct it, or you can
yes.
keep churning it and write a near perfect thing towards the end.
Mm.
Both are valuable in their own way.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you a lot of
Please go on,
times
please go
today.
on. No, please feel free.
Thank you. Mm.
So Winnicott also was very active in public education.
Mm.
And at that time, radio was there.
Mm.
So he used to do a lot of radio broadcasts on child development and parenting.
Mm.
So he spoke, and he spoke, I think, from 39 to 69. And out of it, what we have in terms of some recording is 43 to 62. And some of the important speeches he gave were a man looks at motherhood, getting to know your baby, the baby as an ongoing concern, and a note on infant feeding. And one really feels like congratulating BBC, it could carry this quality of programs.
And
Now, of
preserve
course, it has become a woke trash, but at that point, we can see the quality.
I don't know what is woke trash.
Oh, the woke movement, they have their own beliefs, likes and dislikes, and they
Mhm.
have this something called cancel culture.
Oh,
Meaning, if you don't like somebody, just cancel him out. Don't give him any space on any platform.
oh, I see.
So,
Mhm.
like, if they believe in any left of center ideology and you want to counter them, they won't allow you to speak.
Mm.
It's a kind of a soft fanaticism.
Mm.
So now it is that completely in the hands of the hoax. But at that point, it was very high quality media. Now it is complete trash. I mean, you don't feel like listening to anything on it. Even if you listen, you can't believe, because you know it's an agenda driven service. One of the things that one finds when we read Winnicott in the original is that there is a kind of serenity, something healthy and something happy that you don't find in any other analyst. So in every analyst, you feel that some unresolved problems, lack of composure, eruptions, aggression, lack of soothing that you find in practically every thinker in psychoanalysis. But in Winnicott, you find a sage kind of serenity. If you read his papers in original, I have a collection of it. Someday, if we find time, go through it. But this is like a sage-like composure. Like, as people say, how much of it you have put in your own life? How much of your psychoanalysis is operating in your life? Is this just the wisdom for others, or do you practice what you preach? On that point, we can say Winnicott is one of the most integrated people in terms of implementing. And you see that serene, sage-like composure, that happiness, that lack of aggression, pointed spear towards anybody, somebody who is happy and joyfully doing what he is doing, not having any hit list, not afraid that anybody has him on the hit list. That kind of sage-like serene composure you find in Winnicott's writings.
No ulterior agenda.
Yes. Now, Winnicott, early in his career, looked at the game of spatula. So he found that in his clinic as a pediatrician, when children were brought in and he had this spatula on the table, he noted how children responded to that spatula. And he termed this as the spatula game. And this was a very important game for Winnicott to get an insight into the mind of the child. And he found that you can divide children into two, the healthy and the unhealthy. And we'll go later into why the healthy are healthy and the unhealthy are unhealthy. But at the first level, phenomenologically, what does a healthy child do? Healthy child comes into the clinic, he looks at the spatula, there is an initial hesitation, then he tries to put his hand and grab it. At times, he may look once at the mother and the clinician, doctor, and then grab it, and then look at it, explore it, play with it, throw it, try to break it, again catch it up, do some exploration, and then finally let it go, relinquish it. So there is a three-step process of the child: hesitation, which is very micro, exploration, which is the major part of the activity, and in the end, relinquishment. He has done the exploration, he has had the experience he wanted, he has learned all that he had to learn, he had developed his motor skills, whatever he wanted, and he is able to give it up. So the cycle is complete. From an unknown to the known to the renounced, cycle is complete. Now, when a child is unhealthy, what happens? Many things happen, and he lists down. He says, there can be a persistent hesitation. The child extends his hands and takes back. He keeps looking at the two adults for permission because he's afraid of attack. He is afraid of displeasure. He is afraid of disapproval. There is a persistent hesitation. There is no confidence that I will be allowed what I want to do. I will be allowed to be myself. I have to constantly tailor myself to their wishes. And the world is not a safe place. Attack can come. Criticism can come. Inhibition can come. In the first case, the child is confident that the adults are very benign. They are either going to encourage me or help me. Here, the child is hesitant. He is afraid of the attack of the elders. He does not believe the adults are so benign. So there can be hesitation till one of the adults says, go ahead and do it, don't worry, and then he will do it. Or an adult picks it up and gives it to him. You want this? Then he will grab it. And even then he will look to him when he is exploring, okay, am I doing too much? Am I crossing the line? Will now an attack come? So he's constantly checking out for attacks. He's constantly checking out for inhibitions put by the environment. He's constantly checking out on the limitations of his freedom. He's constantly checking out if he has done a mistake. Second, there can be a complete withdrawal that the child looks at it. He feels like doing something, but he censors his own thoughts and even his hands don't go out. In the first case, the hands go out and come back in the midway. But here, even the hands don't move. The desire is not translated into motor action at all. It is censored, repressed at the level of thought itself. Even the partial motor action is not there. There's complete withdrawal, disinterest. There can be a compulsive or impulsive grasping. That there can be a sudden grasping and then one leaves it off. Or there can be a compulsive thing that you keep grasping it again and again, again and again. You grasp it the adults put it back. Again, you grasp it, adults put it back. It becomes like a compulsive grasping. There can be limited or stereotyped exploration. Can you think about what can be the reasons? We'll go into it, but let us say limited or stereotyped explorations. The child has figured out what the adults will not object to, and that he feels safe to do. So it is only those things he does, or he has an internal need he cannot put aside, and the internal need is somehow addressed in only this way. That this grasping and playing is in a way a autoplay therapy done by the child to himself. There can be inability to give up the object.
The limited or stereotyped exploration could also mean that
It can mean autism spectrum or mental retardation, that area also.
the block is there, yes, but I had thought of something else which
Yeah, please go on.
which means the pseudo retardation, which is analogous to the concept of pseudo mental retardation, a mental pseudo retardation, wherein the authorities, the environment doesn't allow sufficient play to the child, and the child stops experimenting
Correct.
and he doesn't explore all the possibilities and is actually not retarded but appears retarded
True.
because he doesn't exercise the full functioning capacity. The
Correct.
function pleasure is not exercised
Yes.
completely.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because the child has learned that this far he will not be attacked,
Mm.
but beyond that he will be attacked because the caregivers are not capable of
Mm.
allowing creative exploration.
Mm.
They become too anxious or too attacking. So either they become too anxious or they become too envious.
Mm.
And in either case, they attack.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it becomes worse
Mm.
that initially they attack or they threaten to attack. And when the child does not listen, they threaten abandonment by going away. And that is terrible because loss is far worse than attack. Some children, so this inability to relinquish the object, it also refers to object loss. And therefore, by substitution, the child is trying to undo the object loss by holding on to the object as though he's trying to regain the lost object. This is also something that happens in transitional objects, which we will see later, that the transitional object does not remain transitional, it becomes permanent. That what should be temporary becomes permanent. One is not able to give it up. Like some people will have a habit of keeping a towel or keeping some blanket with them, even in their later ages, which means the transitional object has become permanent.
One of our doctor's child needed to carry parents' handkerchief or something in the pocket so that the child could sit through the school.
Correct.
Yes.
I know of a girl who got married and
Mhm.
she took the teddy bear that her brother had given
Yes.
her
Yes.
along with
Yes.
her.
Mm. Mm. There is so much karuna everywhere. But,
Right.
mm.
There can be absence of playfulness. That the playfulness you expect at that age has already been blunted out. We already straightened out the whole playfulness.
Orthopedics.
Or there can be extreme distress in the situation. That forget the play with the spatula, the person, the child is extremely distressed just being in that room. Until he is in the room, he just keeps crying or he is terrified of it. So the last one is the fear of infinite pain, the fear of extreme attack. And the second one is a kind of hopelessness. These two are extreme. Worst prognosis. Complete withdrawal is the worst prognosis. Extreme distress, second worst prognosis. Rest of them are still, relatively speaking, easy to handle. So if we go into the analytic exploration of each, what do we get? Like persistent hesitation. It is fear of attack, the fear of approval or disapproval. Complete withdrawal, is it bottled up anger or hopelessness, resignation? That the child may have tried many times and found it futile, so he resigns. Compulsive or impulsive grasping, it can be inability to mediate desire with thoughts or a way of managing one's anxiety or anger. So the compulsiveness is out of inability to manage anxiety or anger, and the impulsiveness is out of inability to manage the desire or mediate it with thought. Limited or stereotyped exploration is coming out of the safe limits he has found himself, what will not be attacked, or it's an attempt to do auto psychotherapy on oneself, and therefore only those things are repeated. Inability to relinquish the object, it tells us about an object loss the child has already suffered. And now he can't let go of what he catches on. And in a way, the spatula then becomes substitute of the lost object, and he can't let it go. Can you think of why the spatula becomes the lost object?
I cannot directly pinpoint, but maybe a phallic symbol, the courage the father failed to give the courage to the child. But I don't know. I'm 100% wrong. I'm convinced.
Uh, it depends upon at what age you are looking at the child.
Uh-huh.
Is he past the Oedipal phenomena or not? And if he's past the Oedipal phenomena, then what you say can easily be the case. If he has not passed the Oedipal stage and he is in a pre-Oedipal period, then there will be a shift of omnipotence.
Oh.
That he has lost the omnipotent all good breast. And now he feels that the omnipotent mother is going to a doctor who is even more omnipotent, that the mother has to go to him. And this is his something that he uses without which he can't do. So this must be something omnipotent. So
Magical.
either because of the dependence chain, that the mother depends upon the doctor and the doctor depends upon the tool, or by association that this tool is near the doctor, either ways the omnipotence is shifted. And because the omnipotence is awakened, this can easily become a substitute object for an omnipotent object which is lost. Absence of playfulness.
too limiting and harsh parenting, perhaps. Environment that is constricting, restrictive.
So it is the attack in the form, various forms
Mm,
of criticism, coldness, dismissal. So attacks in various forms, active attacks and passive attacks.
mm,
And at times, even the threat of abandonment. So all of that leads to absence of playfulness. In some cases, it can also be extreme shame of doing anything. That if one deeply believes one is not good enough, then whatever he does in public, there is a feeling that if I do something in public, it's going to be stupid and it's going to be criticized or attacked, or I'll be shamed in some way. So whatever I do in public, it's going to be shameful. I can't do anything good in public. I can't do anything impressive in public. So that can also lead to absence of playfulness. And in such cases, the child may be playful when alone, but not in the presence of others, which
or
is a
the fantasy life may be rich. Or the
yes.
fantasy life may be rich.
In the fantasy life, he may be impressing everyone with his play because that will be the natural movement of compensation. So in the fantasy life, he will always have a gallery that he is impressing or who are impressed by him in some way. So that will tell us how much is the narcissism and how much is the dependence. Like if the dream is that everyone is impressed, but we don't see the act of impressing them, it is pure dependence. But if you see the act of impressing them and then everyone comes and says you are so good, that is both. That the stage performance component comes from the narcissism inside. And if that small component also is not there, then directly we will see everyone congratulating. Extreme distress during the situation. This is a very Kleinian phenomenon underneath, where you are projecting and introjecting very difficult objects. That omnipotent good and bad objects are projected onto people, and then as they appear, they are internalized again. Again, they are projected out and they are internalized again. And if the Oedipal stage is passed, then you will have both these projections, the terrifying Oedipal projections and even more terrifying pre-Oedipal projections. And that is where the fear of infinite pain comes in, the needle phobia, that people are terrified of injections.
Oh, I see.
It is not the pain, it is the projection of infinite pain on that device. That although the pain is limited, if you calculate it on a doll's scale, but the idea before it starts is, I am going to have infinite pain. That pain is related to infinite pain, and the pictures of that infinite pain are activated in the unconscious, like somebody is pulling off my skin or somebody is biting off. All those horrifying, brutalized fantasies, they are activated, and that is what creates this phobia. That in the unconscious, there are terrifying fantasies which are completely disproportionate to the pain which is going to come.
Rorschach they will show as all Rorschach test they will all show as mutilation, blood, body parts.
Correct, correct. So Rosha is a very good way of knowing early life object relations.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good test for knowing the Kleinian early life object relations. So any question till now?
We will have once more of this lecture again after the end of our teaching.
Okay.
This is so nice. And
Yes,
each point deserves elaboration in an essay, actually.
correct.
Or I am meeting my early childhood pathology, perhaps, revisiting the things which I apparently had left behind or mastered.
Yes.
So the veneer is out and away, the thin veneer, and I see it might have progressed.
It's a very fortunate situation
Of
that you are
course,
able to consciously connect back.
and yes, and persevere enough even when I'm not as young as other students, which
That's
is very
a
nice.
that's an essential part for being a good analytic person. That one
Thank
is
you, sir.
able to realize the concept in an autobiographical sense.
Yes.
I always repeat what Belzer said, and I will do it again.
Uh-huh.
Belzer said, ki, if it is not autobiographical enough, it is not psychoanalytic enough.
Absolutely. I don't know who Melzer was or is, but that is great.
So I
Thank you.
always say that uh, there is nothing like an innocent interest in psychoanalysis.
Uh-huh. Yeah, of course.
The
Everybody is a wounded soldier.
uh, and concept turns into conviction
Mhm.
only in the laboratory of the self.
Mm.
This is one of those areas where
What is
the,
what turns into what?
the concept turns into conviction
Conviction.
only
Mhm.
in the laboratory of the self.
Mm.
In fact, the whole statement is this. I wrote it in my writing on narcissism, the mirror in the water.
The mirror in the.
Water,
Uh-huh.
small monograph.
Mhm.
So there the whole statement is there is nothing like an innocent interest in psychoanalysis. Erstwhile neurotics are the best Freudians, and
Mhm.
erstwhile psychotics are the best Kleinians.
Oh, I see.
Concept turns into conviction here only in the laboratory of the self.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so let us look at Winnicott's concepts. One
Mhm.
by one, we will look at
Mhm.
Winnicott's concepts.
Mhm.
With regard to Winnicott, there are three concepts which are very popular: good enough mothering, true and false self, and the transitional object. But rest of the concepts are not popular, and there are many of them. So let us look into Winnicott's concepts, important concepts one by one. The first major concept is of primitive agonies. That at birth, after birth, there are some primitive agonies the child experiences. And we have to give a lot of weightage to what Winnicott says because he observed small children for almost 25 to 40 years. And that makes us give a lot of weightage to what he says. And he has not deduced this from regression of adults. He has seen it firsthand.
Empirical, data-based, data-driven theory. Yes, sir.
So the first thing that he says is primitive agonies.
Mm.
He says initially there are some primitive feelings that we have which are very difficult.
Mm.
The first he names as the fear of annihilation. And this is, he uses these words in a very peculiar way, not in the way that I use or in the way most people will use. So let us look at what he means in his own specific context. when he says annihilation, so what comes to our mind is there is fear of death and there is fear of annihilation. How are the two different? And the third question is, what does he mean by this? So before we go to what he means, let us look at annihilation in general. That there is a fear of death and there is a fear of annihilation. So annihilation would mean that you cease existing in every possible way. You are erased from existence forever. Whereas in death, you may still be survived by your memories. Like,
And
yeah,
to borrow from Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, that past is not dead. There were hundreds of possibilities, and you gave life to some of them, and therefore death at least has it comes as a closure to the things that had been, whereas annihilation means there was nothing.
right,
You never existed.
correct.
Mhm.
And I will complement what he said,
Mhm.
Frankel said, with another
Mhm.
concept, and then we come back to our discussion.
Sir.
Uh, there's a very good idea by Gadamer.
Mhm.
The idea is of effective history.
Effective.
History.
Uh-huh.
That the present is no doubt influenced by the past, but
Mhm.
not the entire past, some part of the past.
Mhm.
So that part is effective right now.
Mhm.
Like uh, if we are looking at Einstein,
Mhm.
then what Newton did was effective history for him. That influenced his thinking and led him to rebut the whole thing. But some chemical science that some shaman did in the jungles of Amazon, that practically had no effect on that thinking of Einstein. So that also is our past. It is not our past. But past is wide, and out of that, in the present, what is active, that has connection with some part of the past, not the whole of the past. And that part of the past, like you are doing physics and you are influenced by past physics, but you will not be influenced by past shamanism or past astrology. So he called it the effective history. That what part of history is active and influencing what you are considering at the moment.
Something like palimpsest.
Yes.
Palimpsest. Mhm.
But in a different way, because palimpsest means that you erase and write something new on the same leaf.
Mhm.
But here we are talking about the connection.
Mhm.
That if what you are writing has a relation with what you erase,
Okay.
then it is effective history.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it is just history. It is history, no doubt. But that component is not influencing what you are doing right now. So out of the whole history, there is a small component which is related to what you are doing, which is influencing it, maybe in a distant way, minute way, but still related. That is effective history. The same applies for a person also. That when he is considering to do something in the present, some part of his past is active, the effective past. His effective personal history is active, may not be the whole of his past. And when we talk of annihilation, it almost seems as though we are going to erase the whole person, his whole past, present, and future forever. It is like an erasure from existence. So normally what we see is the death, the fear of death, and the fear of ceasing to be. Because even after I die, there might be a bridge named after me, let us say, or a picture kept of me by somebody, or a reference or a book of mine in some way there is some sort of a psychological existence, which I presume I will not experience, but I presume. But annihilation means complete erasure, just ceasing to be, which is worse than the death anxiety because it includes death and includes something more. It's a kind of a super death. So that is normally the way one looks at annihilation. But Winnicott uses this word in a different way. He uses this word in the context that the self is building itself from a chaotic mass of sensations. The ego, the I, is building itself, and in the process, when it is not consolidated, there is a fear of disintegrating back into its constituents, and that is the fear of annihilation. So it is the annihilation of the psychological self, not erasure from existence. It's a very specific sense in which he uses the word annihilation. He uses it in a very psychological sense, not in the existential sense. So he says some of the primitive agonies that we experience are: one, there is a fear of annihilation, that from a mass of chaotic amorphous sensations, a center is emerging, which is then going to coordinate it. And that center creates a sense of I, and later it allows us to create a sense of not I, the world. And that center itself is in danger. Because in the process of creation, it comes together. At times it can again deconstruct itself. Again it comes together. And there is this fear of annihilation. What if this self ceases to exist and I go back into those chaotic sensations? The second primitive agony is the fear of falling forever. We see that in dreams also. Very common dream. That one just keeps falling and falling and there is no end to it and one wakes up. And some people say it is the memory of coming out of the birth canal. But this agony of falling forever. Third, fear of fragmentation, going to pieces. One does not see oneself as a solid one piece, but different pieces trying to connect somehow. As Lacan says, initially, when we see in the mirror, we are surprised. Because inside this complete disintegration, but the physical body looks one piece. So the sensation and the video are two different things. The mirror shows me as one piece consolidated, but inside I feel completely fragmented. Please.
Excessive mirror gazing is a feature of hebephrenia, or even in otherwise regression, people are known to look more at their image in the mirror, perhaps because it gives them courage and solace that they are there. This is how I understand it.
Very interesting why people look in the mirror. Mirror, mirror, tell me all.
That I don't know. I went to Marathi medium school, so.
It's like, okay, tell me who is the most beautiful of all.
Oh, I see.
And the mirror is supposed to say, it's only you, it's only you.
Praise me, praise me.
It's like something like mirror, mirror on the wall. Tell me who is beautiful of them all. And the mirror is supposed to say, it's only you, it's only you. So some who look in the mirror will have the motivation of looking good. It will be a narcissistic, exhibitionistic motivation. Some will look into the mirror to reconfirm their existence.
Yes.
It's an acknowledgement act. I exist.
Mm-hmm.
The acknowledgement of my existence I am not getting from others, I do it.
Mm-hmm.
And some can look into it to reassure oneself of one's not being fragmented. It's a defense against fragmentation. Okay, I see I'm consolidated one whole. It helps me to manage my fragmentation inside. Because the psyche is far more flexible, unlike the body. The psyche can fragment, the bones and flesh are not going to fragment. The psyche can regress, the bones are not going to get shortened. So when I regress to 4 years of age, my body does not become 4 years. So there is stability in the physical form, but the psychological aspect of the system is very fluid. So there is a fear of fragmentation, this fragmentation anxiety, and this comes up in many different ways, like some parents not allowing children to have high volume. Their extreme fear of what will people say, and below that a fragmentation anxiety. They can't endure high levels of euphoria. So they have to always have some degree of sadness to maintain the concreteness. Because high degree of euphoria, high degree of happiness, high degree of affective expression, high degree of public display of affection, it creates fragmentation.
Experiencing something with abandon is not possible.
Correct. So if we will see later in Winnicott's terms, it is unorganizing.
Unorganizing.
So what happens in most people is they are not capable of unorganizing. They are living in organizing and disintegration. So they only experience organized state and a disintegrated or a disorganized state. They cannot experience an unorganized state. They experience, but it's not easy for them. It's not normal for them. It's not common for them, let me see. So for Winnicott, this is very important to go into unorganized state, a healthy state where the ego recedes into the background without disintegrating. That is how you are able to enjoy the movie.
If you're secure in your own identity, the apparent attacks and disintegration should not lead you to experience disintegration, but you can go to unorganized and then carry together, bring together everything else again, like Jarasandha.
Yes. Yes.
Correct.
Correct. It's a very good mythological example. That the ego is intact even when the parts are blown off, and the ego has the regenerative capacity to bring them again back together. So in movie, what happens is you cannot enjoy a movie or any piece of art unless you suspend reality to some degree.
Yes.
Suspension of reality is necessary. Otherwise, every movie person is doing what he is doing because he's paid for it. And if you keep that in mind, it's all false and it's paid for, and everyone is trying to make a career here on the screen.
Yes.
That you can't get lost in the movie. You will keep analyzing the motivations of those actors.
But even when the movies are at times so trash and gory and violence is unbearable, and you combine all that larger than life sounds and images in 2 hours to throw upon you, because when I went for doing my PhD studies and there was a film Chandni bar that was being screened in the Swiss Institute. And the students there, who were nearly half my age, they insisted, Vasudev, you must come because this is a Hindi movie. I said, what is the movie and what is the plot? They explained to me and I said, I'm not going to come. They said, why? You are a psychiatrist, you must come. I said, such patients get well under my care, but you put them together in 2 hours in such a loud noise and you can't hijack my emotion. I am ready to analyze it. Like Bertolt Brecht said, you should not hijack the audience's examining ego. And that should be left intact for working. Otherwise, so they allowed me not to go. And even later on, Klaus Bayer, when we were working with him and child pedophilia, like child sex abuse film, and I refused to watch. And he said, it's perfectly fine, don't watch, because if it is going to be traumatic for you, I don't want you to watch.
Correct.
So let me accept my delicate health and guard it well.
Correct. Correct.
Yes, sir. Sorry,
So it's
again.
like that perfectly okay. It's like saying someday I will say hello
Someday I will say hello.
to that.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, to that traumatic
Okay.
thing.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Or I have now grasped what you are and where you are, and I'm not interested in going into bits and pieces. For me, the integration for this birth, whatever I have achieved is good enough. Good enough. You got hardware, you got software, you got power to edit your own software. You are not going to become greater than Mahatma Gandhi. So it is be satisfied with what you have got. This is the eulogy, I can say,
Right.
for self.
Correct.
Sir, I'm sorry. I forget the boundaries that this is a classroom and not an analysis session.
Please go
But
on.
you
Please
had told it in the beginning.
feel free.
I
Feel
I
free.
often wonder. I often wonder that across the boundaries. I mean, this is
Never.
not in your discipline.
No,
I'm
no, no.
breaking the frame.
Feel free. Feel free. Feel free.
Thank you, sir. I had tough conscience keepers for sure. That is,
I
that is
mean,
why I'm always
they are beating you from inside all the time.
once bitten, twice shy, many times shy. That is what I am.
So the primitive agonies is one of the elements is fragmentation anxiety. The fourth one is the loss of psychosomatic unity. That in the inner world, one does not feel that one has occupied the whole space. Like there is a part of the self which in some way we are not occupied. We have kept it outside of us. And similarly, we don't feel to occupy whole of our body. Okay, there are parts of the body which we are treating almost as the outside, a special kind of an outside. It is an outside inside.
Inside, outside, it's opposite of that.
It's an outside within us. It's an outside inside of us.
Mm.
The next thing that Winnicott talks about is loss of orientation. By that he means loss of anchoring and stability, and loss of ideas about what we are and what the other is. That stability is gone. It's the loss of anchor, loss of identity of self, and loss of identity of the other. It's like something which was very well structured suddenly is into disarray, and there is a leaf in the wind situation. There is no anchor. And this is the loss of orientation. And last is non-existence. Now, again, it can be interpreted as annihilation, ceasing to be. But Winnicott interprets this in a different way. He actually uses it in the analogous way to what Kohut would call acknowledgement. The environment acknowledging my existence. That if there are 5 people in the room and I am one of them, if people come in, 5, 6 people come in, and they say hello to everyone, but nobody says hello to me. So my existence is not acknowledged. I am like a piece of furniture in the room. And that is what he means by ceasing to exist as a psychological person. That what if nobody treats you as a distinct psychological person deserving acknowledgement and some dignity? And these are some of the primitive agonies with which the child is saddled with. And these are like natural to early infancy. And then the question comes, okay, these primitive agonies and some more difficulties, they have to be overcome in the process of development. And if they are overcome rightly, then we reach into a healthy state or into an unhealthy state. So then comes the question of what is necessary for managing these primitive agonies and some more agonies which will come on the way so as to reach health. So the other concepts of Winnicott are related to that. And the first concept there is the facilitating environment.
So the primal cry is a concept by Winnicott or someone else?
Someone else.
Facilitating environment.
Should we break for a cup of tea?
No problem. Yes.
And then we come back to start the facilitating environment.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Facilitating environment, it includes maternal care, a family environment, reliability, consistency, and emotional availability. And 3 important elements here. What is called handling, holding, and object presenting. Let me just change this. So the maternal care has to be available. There are 2 parts here, maternal and care. So the mother has to be available and the mother has to be caring. If there is a situation of abandonment, the mother is not available, or a situation of attack, the mother is not caring enough. In either situation of loss or attack, the first part, maternal care, is impaired. If the family environment where other than the mother, members are not loving and caring but attacking either to the child or to the mother, or the family environment constantly is of scarcity, worry, then that also has an effect. The second component of facilitating environment. First, there has to be a mother and a caring mother. Second, the family environment should not be abandoning, attacking, dismissing either to the child or to the mother. Third, there has to be reliability, consistency, and emotional availability. First of the mother and later of the others, but primarily of the mother. This unpredictability is something terrible for the child. And one of the reasons is that the child still does not have the concept of object constancy. That when the object is not in its perceptual field, it still exists. So the temporality of object is so deeply ingrained that the object not being present can easily be understood as object having been destroyed or having ceased to exist or having abandoned the child. So for the child, absence is more than absence. It can be abandonment, it can be death of the object, and the child can blame himself for the death of the object. Now, three important components of facilitating environment are handling, holding, and object presenting. These three are very important, conceptually speaking. Other operationally also, handling, holding, and object presenting. Handling means how the child is being handled physically. How is the environment taking care of the physical needs? That the child is being handled as one unit, handled with care, not giving any pain or distress to the child, and available when the child asks for. Second is holding, which is psychological. That the child will have distressing feelings, and the mother, instead of joining the child, has to remain as a good container. That she has to be able to hold the feelings of the child, take in difficult feelings and give out a smile. Not to start to become disintegrated like the child, not to join the child, but to convert the input of the child, which is distress, into an output, which is a smile, a reassurance, a solidity. So the mother actually acts as a processor. The input effect is a negative effect. The output effect is a positive effect. And the container converts the negative effect into the positive effect based upon how much positivity the container has and how much containing capacity the container has. If the mother has no containing capacity or no positivity, she can't do this conversion. So the psychological holding creates in the child the idea of being psychologically one person and not fragmented. So the mother not only holds the emotions, but also holds, in a sense, the consolidated feeling of the child, that I am not fragmented, I am one. And it allows the child to feel important and a sense of agency, that somebody listens to him when he exerts himself. And that is very important for a child to feel I am good enough and I can exercise my power in this world. Otherwise, the right to ask or right to exercise authority is inhibited, because one has never been taught that one has a right to ask and not only the right to please. So the right to ask and the right to exert one's authority, and that when you exert your authority, the world will listen. Nobody will make fun of you. Nobody will disobey you. Nobody will attack you. Nobody will take revenge. That is very important for somebody to exert authority. And we see in real life also, very few people are actually confident of exerting authority. and fewer still healthy people, those who are comfortable, a large number of them are narcissists. It's not easy to find a healthy person comfortable with exertion of authority. The sub-third is object presenting. How are other objects brought into the perceptual field of the child? And this is where how do you look at a stranger comes in. That if the mother introduces other objects as benign objects on whom the child can trust, and these objects in turn prove the mother right, the child develops a very strong sense of social skills and confidence in going out to people. If, however, the others are presented as somebody who is scheming, somebody who is against the mother, like the mother is introducing the grandmother, her mother-in-law, and she starts speaking all ills about her, then the object presenting is filled with suspicion. It's filled with fear. It's filled with hatred and anger. It's filled with scheming and counter-scheming. And this creates a template of how, by default, we view people and how we approach people who are not known to us. And then it will take considerable period of time for them to overcome our default first assessment. It is like proved guilty unless proved otherwise. Later we will go into what DSM disorders will arise if this is in trouble. So those tables we'll take into consideration later, that one by one, if facilitating environment goes wrong, what DSM disorders can arise. If good enough mothering goes wrong, what disorders can arise. If true and false self go wrong, what disorders can arise. So I have created a separate table for it. So first let us go through concepts, then relate it to DSM disorders. Second important concept, or third one, is primary creativity. For Winnicott, spontaneity is of great value. And it is opposite of adjustment and compliance. Spontaneity comes from safety and a good facilitating environment. The child feels safe and happy, confident in himself. Whereas adjustment and compliance come from helplessness. That to survive physically and psychologically, one has to adjust and comply. It comes from fear of abandonment and attack. And in a way, the more you adjust and comply, the less you are able to be yourself. It's a zero-sum game. The more you are able to be yourself, less you can adjust and comply. The more you adjust and comply, less you can be yourself. And this is the whole struggle of existence, that how can we try to be ourselves? And that has two parts, three parts. First is to find out who we really are. Because in this long process of adjustment and compliance, most of us have forgotten who we actually are. And so all the adjustment and compliance, which much of it now we think is ourselves, this is what I am, is not true. When we say this is who I am, this is our present assessment of ourselves. But we have to chip away the adjustment and compliance and the compromises. And then we realize who is the true us. So the first part is finding ourselves. The second part is walking the path of trying to be oneself. And the third stage is, after trying our best, what cannot be put in practice, they are accepting reality. You are saying something.
Sir, is it somewhat similar to primary autonomy?
Yes. So the first is, how is primary creativity exhibited? Winnicott does not believe that only artists are creative. His idea is that every psyche is creative. The creativity may not be channelized to art, but it is channelized in other ways.
Every
And
interview is creative, psychiatric.
correct,
Sorry,
it is true.
every interaction with the patient is creative.
So he says, I create my experience, and the act of creating my experience is a creative act. That every moment I create my experience. And if we analyze our experience every moment, it has a lot of surreal elements built into it. It is not a snapshot of a fact. It is not a register of facts. Facts are loaded with surreal elements. And that surreal loading is a creative act. It is like there is a movie script writer inside of us. And all he does is he takes facts as a seed ideas and develops a script around it, which is loaded with surreal elements. Second element of primary creativity is this psychic movement of omnipotence. That there are fantasies of omnipotence. And they are natural. It is not pathological. It is natural to have a search for omnipotence in the infant. It is when this is not handled properly that it becomes a fixation into grandiosity. But we pass through omnipotence, we pass through grandiosity, and we reach reality. It is when, according to Winnicott, when the developmental process is arrested, pathology happens. So Winnicott does not talk about pathology as a drive frustration or a frustration of not having internalized a good, reliable, stable object. He talks of pathology as a developmental arrest. That the developmental process is going on and somehow it is arrested. And the job of therapy is to restart the process. So on this point, Winnicott and Kohut are together. Both of them believe it to be a developmental arrest. Unlike Freud, Klein, and Bion. So he says this stage, not this stage, but this psychic journey of omnipotence is natural and a lot of creativity is invested in that process. Similarly, the early experience of the child is a subjective experience. It is not an objective experience. So we move from the subjective to the objective, from the imaginary to the real. And he says, initially we have illusions, and it is natural to have those illusions. It is from illusions that we move to reality slowly. But we don't start, it is not that we start with reality and fall into illusion. We are naturally starting with an illusion and we reach reality. And healthy development starts with illusion. And he says creativity does not mean creativity only in art. There is creativity in experiences we create for ourselves.
Sir, is disillusionment the same for Winnicott?
Yes, disillusionment will slowly lead to reality. We'll come to that point, illusion and disillusion.
Yes.
So one has to pass through illusion, disillusionment, and reach reality. Because one passes from the idea of a perfect mother to the idea of a mother who occasionally frustrates, and then the real mother, combining the two. Because when she frustrates, she appears as completely bad mother. And when you combine the two, it leads to the real mother. Fourth concept is object relating. How do we relate to objects? And here Winnicott says that initially we relate to a subjective object. An object in our mind, not necessarily an object as it is outside. It may even be an object which is created partly from our imagination and partly from reality. It is a fantasy-based relationship. There are projections onto the object, and the object is in omnipotent control of us. We are omnipotent and we control the object because it's in our imagination. And it is necessarily an internal object relationship. And from there, we slowly move to relating with outside objects who are not in our control, and our omnipotence slowly falls. So we have disillusionment about ourselves also, just as we have disillusionment about others. And these two disillusionments in right proportion are necessary for reaching the zone of health. So then we come to illusion and disillusionment. Initially, there is continuous maternal adaptation to the wants of the child. And after some time, the maternal adaptation reduces. The mother starts prioritizing herself to some extent over the child. And the subjective omnipotence starts falling. Because initially, the mother was at your call and she would do whatever you ask. Now, slowly, the subjective omnipotence starts falling. That the mother is not listening as much as she used to. Her adaptation is reducing, her frustrations are increasing, and our omnipotence is reducing. And there is a gradual disillusionment and acceptance of reality. And this leads to emotional maturation. And for that, what is needed is optimum frustration. Not too high, not too low. And this is a very important part of Winnicott's therapy also, optimum frustration. Too high and too low, it becomes traumatic. Sixth important concept is of object use. It refers to the child wants to have a right to exploit the mother. And the mother should allow the child to exploit her. So what happens in object use? The child is using the object, but the object is surviving the destruction. Even if the child in fantasy destroys the object reappears. Even when the object goes out of the perceptual field of the child, and the child feels the object has been destroyed because it does not understand absence. He does not understand object constancy. that what is not even in our perceptual field still exists, and the object reappears. So in a sense, the object survives the destruction, and the survival of the object is a given for the child. Slowly the child gets into recognition of external reality, that the external reality is different from my internal reality. If somebody goes out of my perceptual field, he does not cease to exist. Even though I can't see, but the existence continues. And even if I destroy somebody in my fantasy, he's not destroyed in reality. So there is a recognition of an external reality outside of one's subjectivity, and recognition of object permanence regardless of one's fantasy or perceptual absence. And this gives rise to mature relationships, that the other is existing independent of me and independent of my fantasies.
We learned in some of the psychotherapy literature that uh, when we are dealing with severe personality disorders like borderline or narcissistic, uh, it is the task of the therapist to ensure that he doesn't get destroyed because of the patient's overtures or angry outbursts or violence. And that is essential for the patient to see that the therapist is not destroyed.
Correct. So two things happen there.
Mm-hmm.
First, patients test you out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you take their aggression?
Yes.
And the second is, some patients, they stop therapy
Mm-hmm.
because the moment aggression towards their caregivers is coming up in transference towards the therapist,
Mm-hmm.
afraid they will destroy the therapist. And they want to preserve the therapist because they have deposited the soft, sensitive child of them for safekeeping in the therapist. So they don't want to destroy the therapist. At the same time, they're afraid of their aggression destroying them. So some of them, they stop therapy.
Okay.
One of the
Another,
important,
sorry. Another interesting small incident was when my son was about 4 years old. I wanted to attend a lecture by a Nobel laureate that was there in Pune University about some astrophysics aspect like neutron star or something. And because I was interested, I thought, let me go. And he wanted to go with me. And I asked him, then he came with me. I told him that he has to sit quiet in the auditorium and all that. He followed everything. But after 1 hour, I realized that I also am not following anything. So I suggested to him, shall we go? I am also not understanding anything. He said, no, but if we don't wait, how will we understand? There is no chance of understanding. So we should wait more. So he was actually supporting me.
right,
And uh, on my way home, he said something that we recently had lost my father. That he said, I realize that even after I die, the days continue. It is not the end of the days. So I found it rather profound, and I could not actually deal with that experience at his level
right.
and take it to his level. But it was good. It is, I remember it very clearly even now.
Because it's a role reversal.
Yeah. He's teaching me, yes.
He is saying what you should be saying to him.
Hmm.
The normal thing would be for him to say, so there is a role reversal and the process is a mutual projective identification. You are speaking through him and he is speaking through you. One of the important elements of object use is the right to exploit the object. And what is interesting here is if the child adequately is assured and experiences exploiting the object, after certain degree of exploitation, a genuine guilt, concern, and reparation comes up. And for Winnicott, the delinquency and antisocial tendencies is actually a cry for help. He does not see it as an excess of id or a superego deficit or something. He sees it as a cry for help. It is a cry for a good object to appear. That I want to internalize a good superego, I am not finding one. Because those around me, I have too much aggression or envy, I will not internalize them. I want a safe, benign person who has a good superego that I can internalize. And I am doing antisocial acts so that I find somebody of that sort. So the exploitation of the object will lead to the concern for an object. There is object exploitation and object concern. And after exploitation, the concern automatically rises. So this is one of the important elements, that if we allow our patients to exploit us within the frame of force,
Yes.
then a genuine concern after that arises. There is the guilt arises, the reparation arises, and then a long-standing concern arises. And like Winnicott's primary understanding of pathology, pathology is a developmental arrest, and the job of healing is to restart the process. Then, by that token, if we allow within the frame exploitation, then after some time, guilt arises, reparation arises, and long-standing concern arises, and later the capacity for concern becomes instituted. Any questions?
Very nice. I had read an article on emotional maturity. I never found that again, but I somehow lost it. Must have read it around 1983, and it
Oh,
said that, yeah, my last year of MD. So it said that you have to have the capacity of earning your own resources, manage within them, form relationships at work, also nurture the relationships. If you lose some relationships, then grieve over them, then capacity to overcome that grief and reinvest in new relationships. Same about intimate relationships. And then I don't remember anything else, but there were such 7 or 8 operationalized criteria for emotional maturity. It
oh,
was a nice, dynamically oriented article.
yes. It's a very good enlisting of capacities.
Yes, sir.
So we stop for the day. We continue Winnicott next time. We
Yes.
complete the rest of the concepts. And after that, we'll start connecting to DSM disciplines.
And Kohut and
Yeah,
Kohut and
Kohut,
somebody after that.
yeah, Kohut, Margaret Mahler,
Hmm.
and Davanloo. So they will take very less time, maybe one or
Okay.
two.
Okay,
Okay.
sir. Thank you.